Hi, I'm Eliora. I showed up to help my parents set up their new home, only to find out I wasn't part of it anymore. My face was gone from the walls, my name absent from every list, and someone even mistook me for a stranger in my own family album. They didn't slam the door shut on me. They just quietly made sure I had nowhere to return to. Have you ever realized too late that your place in the family was already filled by someone else? The wind always smells different in a house that isn't yours anymore. I stepped out of the rideshare and stood for a second at the curb, staring at the clean lines of the new house. White brick, oversized windows, a porch light that flickered like it was motion activated. Westlake Hills wasn't the neighborhood I grew up in. My father used to laugh at the people who lived here. Now he was one of them. Delphine had invited me, or rather suggested I swing by if I had time. There was a housewarming party in a few days, and apparently she needed help organizing the space. Not planning, not decorating, just organizing. Like I was a service, like I was a drawer to be sorted. The front door opened before I knocked. Jerome, my father, looked older than I remembered. He hugged me quickly, his hand patting my back with awkward affection. "Glad you made it, Meg." "Eliora," he corrected himself mid-syllable, glancing over his shoulder. Delphine stood behind him, wearing a soft peach blouse, holding a glass of white wine that never seemed to go down. come in," she said with a voice that could frost glass. "We've just finished putting up the final touches. You'll love the gallery wall." I didn't know what she meant until I saw it. 3 steps in, across from the new powder blue sofa, a full-length gallery of framed photographs arranged in perfect symmetry. Summer vacations, birthday dinners, Christmas mornings. Delphine laughing beside Jerome in matching scarves. Ronan's toothless smile under a piñata. A few extended family members, even neighbors. But not one photo of me. Not even the kind that gets stuck on the edge, cropped from another person's arm. Not one where I was blurred in the back, mid-blink. It was like I never lived here, like I'd never existed in the lens that captured all these memories. I stared too long. Delphine noticed. We tried to keep the wall cohesive. The lighting in older photos just didn't match. My father shifted his weight, said nothing. I nodded like I understood. The air smelled like lemon furniture polish and hidden embarrassment. In the dining room, a cousin, one of Delphine's side of the family, flipped through a photo album laid out on the console. She paused, pointing at a picture. "Who's this girl here? Looks like she's at the edge of every party. Is that your friend's daughter?" Delphine leaned in, gave a tight smile. "Oh, that's just someone from a while back." Jerome laughed nervously, scratching his neck. "Old family friend." I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Nothing cold could touch what was happening inside me. I stared at a bottle of sparkling water with a label I didn't recognize. New, glossy, branded, much like everything else here. This wasn't a place that forgot me. It was a place that had never planned to include me again. I opened a drawer under the countertop, out of muscle memory, expecting the corkscrew I'd bought at 21, the one we always used for holidays. Instead, I found a row of designer napkins, monogrammed in gold thread. The J family only. I used to set this table. Now I'm just trying not to get any fingerprints on it. It was the summer after high school, the kind of summer where everything smelled like change, even the things that used to smell like safety. I came home from a shift at the bookstore, sunburned and tired, to find a box sitting outside my bedroom door. A big cardboard box, the kind that usually means someone is moving, or being moved. Jerome was standing in the hallway, arms crossed like he had rehearsed his calm. "We're thinking it's time to make the nursery," he said. Delphine appeared beside him, one hand on her stomach, her voice syrupy smooth. "You'll love the loft upstairs, Eliora. It's cozy, private, and it gets the morning light." She made it sound like a gift. But I hadn't asked for anything. I was just home. They didn't yell. They didn't push. They just stepped back and let the silence carry the decision. The attic wasn't ready. It was dusty and smelled like insulation. One small window, no closet. I dragged my things up in silence, breathing through it like labor. When I reached for my mother's bracelet, silver with a tiny clasp I used to fiddle with when nervous, it wasn't there. I emptied every drawer, checked inside shoes, under folded shirts, nothing. Jerome stood in the doorway watching me sift. Maybe it got packed into one of the donation boxes, he said. Delphine, still holding her belly like it was an answer to everything, offered nothing more than a shrug. We had to declutter, she said. You'll feel lighter. That night, I slept on a futon that leaned to one side, in a room that didn't echo my name. The air was thin, the kind of quiet that didn't soothe, it erased. I started staying at Naira's place more after that. I told her it was because of the commute, but we both knew it wasn't the drive that was unbearable. It was that I had been unroomed. I remember sitting on the edge of the futon the second night in that loft. I looked at the walls, bare, pale, watching me back like I was the intruder. That was the first time I closed a door not for privacy, but just to remind myself I still had one to close. Weeks later, when I came back to pick up more of my things, I ran my hand along the spot where my bookshelf used to stand. Just a long indentation in the carpet now. A ghost outline. I turned to the wall. One pushpin was still there, where I'd tacked up my college acceptance letter. They didn't take the letter, but they erased the wall it once meant something on. I brought the sketchbook with the same hope I used to carry into birthday dinners and holiday visits. A quiet hope, bruised but still breathing. It was wrapped in brown paper and tied with kitchen twine. Something small, thoughtful. I even sharpened the pencils myself. The door creaked the way new houses do, perfectly polished, but still pretending to be warm. Jerome waved me in with one arm, the other already occupied with a mimosa. Brunch, Delphine had texted. Nothing fancy, just family. Ronan was sitting at the end of the table, straight-backed like someone had coached him. His plate had one untouched blueberry pancake, perfectly round. When he looked up, he smiled, polite, small, like how you greet a teacher you're afraid to disappoint. Hi, Ronan, I said, placing the package on the table near him. I thought you might like this. He looked at the twine, then at Delphine, then back at the package. Thanks, he said, but didn't touch it. I took the chair across from him. He tucked his hands under the table. I tried to ask about school. His eyes darted toward Delphine with each answer, like she held the right ones. When I asked what he was drawing these days, he shrugged. His shoulders were narrower than I remembered. Delphine set down her coffee cup with a soft clink. We've noticed he gets really wound up after you visit, she said gently, like a warning inside a lullaby. Maybe we limit things a bit, just to keep his energy calm. Jerome didn't look at me. He adjusted his reading glasses and tapped his phone screen. I nodded once. Of course, his peace matters. The words tasted like sawdust, but I swallowed them. Later, as the table emptied and conversations drifted to the living room, I wandered upstairs and stood in the hallway where his drawings used to hang. The wall was bare now, freshly painted. He used to call me Aya, wrapping his arms around my legs until I nearly toppled. That was when he still wore superhero pajamas and believed I could do anything. Back when I was the one who helped him write his name for the first time, with his left hand, because he wanted to be opposite day cool. Now, he stood with his arms folded in front of him like he was waiting to be excused, like I was the guest. I walked past his room and down to the kitchen to grab my bag. The sketchbook was still on the counter, unopened. He'd left it there when he ran off to show Jerome a new app. I picked it up without a word. Not out of spite, but because leaving it behind would have been messier. I drove back in silence. The kind of silence that presses into your ears and stays there. The kind that makes you wonder if your own name still fits you. As I passed the row of mailboxes at the edge of their development, I whispered to the windshield. They taught him how to unsee me, and somehow that hurt more than anything else. The front door of the old house creaked like it was remembering me. Jerome had texted the night before. Last chance to grab anything you want before we hand it over to the buyers. No greeting, no punctuation, just a logistical closure. When I arrived, the house didn't smell like ours anymore. The walls had been repainted a soft, unremarkable beige. The picture frames were gone. Only the nail holes remained, staring back like unblinking eyes. Delphine handed me a pair of gloves at the door, thin, disposable, the kind used to clean or handle the past like it might be contaminated. She didn't say hello. You can take whatever fits in that box, she said, nodding toward a half-collapsed cardboard cube. Just let me know when you're done. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I walked through the rooms like I was reading an obituary in real time. The living room still had the dent in the floor where the old armchair used to sit. My mother's rocking chair had vanished. The piano was gone. In its place, a shelf of generic home decor, a brass and sign, a wooden block that read, "Family First." In the hallway closet, boxes were stacked to the ceiling. Most were labeled in Delphine's handwriting, "Miss C, donate, trash." I found one labeled "Old Linens." It was barely sealed. I lifted the flaps and stared into a mess of tangled dish rags, faded curtains, and a rice cooker with a cracked lid. As I shifted the contents aside, my hand caught on something softer. Delicate, a handkerchief, cream-colored, frayed edges, one corner stitched with a single letter, E. The thread was faded blue, the kind my mother used to match my eyes. I sat on the floor, legs folded under me like a child, and let the handkerchief rest in my lap. I remembered the summer we practiced embroidery together. I'd complained about how boring it was. She told me, "You're not stitching cloth, you're stitching memory. Every pull leaves a trace." Now the cloth was buried under kitchen rags, like a forgotten heirloom left behind in a drawer no one meant to open. I didn't cry. I folded it twice, then once more, until it fit in the palm of my hand like it had always belonged there. There were no photo albums in sight, no perfume bottle, no wedding ring tucked in a drawer, nothing else left to prove she'd ever been part of this home. Delphine leaned into the doorway. "Is there anything you want, or should I toss the rest?" I didn't look up, just ran my thumb across the embroidery. "You already did." I stood, took the box, and walked out without checking the other rooms. As I pulled the front door closed behind me, I pressed the handkerchief deeper into my coat pocket and kept walking, past the porch, past the mailbox, past the hedges she planted. They erased her name from everything. Except this. New Year's in Delphine's house felt like it was designed for catalog photos. Gold foil garlands draped across mantelpieces, candlelight flickering in symmetrical holders, and champagne flutes so fragile you were afraid to exhale near them. I arrived with a bundt cake I'd baked myself. Orange glaze, a family recipe from my mother's side. I didn't expect anyone to remember that. I just wanted to bring something that still felt like mine. The living room was already crowded with laughter, coats folded over chairbacks, and a playlist of soft jazz curated to feel expensive. I found a spot on the buffet table and carefully placed the cake down, adjusting it until it looked like it belonged. That's when I heard it, across the room, not whispered, just quiet enough to pretend they didn't know I could hear. "She's always been intense," one of Delphine's cousins said, twirling her bracelet like the judgment was casual. "She's just like her mother was," Delphine replied with a smile that didn't reach her voice. "Too internal, too delicate. It's in the blood, I suppose." A few heads nodded. One person even sighed. "Poor Jerome," someone else murmured. "It must be hard for him, dealing with both of them." I turned, looking straight at my father. He met my eyes for a second, then dropped them, took a sip of his wine and said nothing. No defense, no redirect, just silence dressed in beige. I walked into the kitchen, unsure if my legs got me there or if shame did. The counters were too clean. The sink didn't have a single dish. I leaned against the fridge, heart pressing against my ribs like it wanted out. I thought about my mother, how they used to call her fragile, sensitive, emotional, and how none of that meant she wasn't strong, just that she bled where others refused to admit they were cut. Now they were saying the same about me. Same adjectives, same size, same distance. I didn't realize you could inherit shame, that it could be folded into your skin like genetics, that a name could carry not just memory, but accusation. The cake was never touched. When I peeked into the dining room later, a tray of store-bought eclairs had taken center stage. My bundt sat untouched at the edge of the table, like a memory no one wanted to look at. As people began to leave, Jerome approached me near the coat rack. "You were great today," he said gently. "Quiet but present, that matters." I smiled. It took effort. In the car ride home, I kept thinking about that line, quiet but present, as if my absence had been their goal all along, and my presence only proved how quiet I'd become to stay allowed. At home, I opened my journal, wrote one line, sat with it, then crossed it out. I am not her. But if being her means being human, maybe that's the part they fear most. Naira brought it up casually, the way friends mention something they assume you already know. So, Delphine's party is Friday now? She asked, stirring her coffee. I blinked. Friday? She looked up. Yeah, she called the restaurant yesterday to confirm the new date. I figured you two coordinated. Seemed a little last minute. I said nothing, just nodded as if I had simply forgotten. As if my calendar was full of better things. When I got home, I opened my laptop and logged into the catering dashboard. My name, my email, my billing address. The delivery still listed for the same quantity, same custom notes about gluten-free options for her sister, the ones I added. But the date had changed, and no one told me. Not Delphine, not Jerome, not even a polite CC on the email thread. I called my father. He answered on the third ring, sounding distracted, like I had caught him mid-paint sample consultation. We didn't want to pressure you, he said. Delphine mentioned you're not big on crowds. We thought it might be easier for you this way. I didn't argue. What would have been the point? I don't dislike crowds, I said after a beat. I dislike being erased. He chuckled softly, probably thinking I was joking. I didn't laugh. That night I sat at my dining table and looked over the old seating chart I'd once drawn on the back of a napkin, each name carefully considered. A balance of personalities, a mix of comfort and cordiality. I'd even marked spots for the kids so they'd feel included. I deleted the file without flinching. Then I opened the invoice. $1,042, paid in full, tip included. I wasn't angry about the money. Not anymore. It wasn't the payment that stung. It was the proof that I still mattered enough to be useful, but not enough to be invited. In my journal that night, I wrote, maybe they'll remember the sauce I chose, or maybe they'll rename it. I stared at the page until the ink blurred slightly. Then I tore it out and threw it away. Before bed, I passed the fridge and noticed a sticky note I'd left myself weeks ago. Confirm guest count? I crossed it out, wrote underneath, confirm I'm not one. It started with Naira's voice. Calm, but off, like someone trying to hand you bad news wrapped in a neutral tone. Hey, just checking. Did you or Delphine move the party to Friday? She asked. I paused mid-step, staring at the sticky note still on my fridge. The one that said confirm guest count. The one I had already crossed out. No, I said carefully. Why? Naira hesitated. Someone called the restaurant yesterday to change the delivery. They said they were you. Gave your name, your phone number. But it wasn't your number, Eliora, it was Delphine's. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't have to. She sent me the screenshot, the order record, my name at the top in all caps. The note said, same order, just earlier date, confirmed by EH. The initials looked familiar, but they weren't written in my hand. They used my name, I said aloud, not to Naira, but to the wall. Naira didn't reply right away. Finally, she said, you might want to talk to them. This doesn't feel right. I thanked her. I think. I sat down at the kitchen table and pulled my phone out, scrolled through every message. Nothing from Delphine, nothing from Jerome. Just silence, dressed up like coordination. There was no mistake. This wasn't a mix-up. They used my name to complete the task, but never planned to include me in it. I opened the catering portal again. I hovered over the cancel button, then pulled my hand away. No, not yet. Instead, I got up, poured a glass of water I wouldn't drink, and sat in the dark. They didn't steal my money. They didn't even need to lie. They just made a choice, and signed it with my name. I canceled my plans for the weekend, the one brunch with colleagues, the one gallery I'd promised to check out. I needed time. I needed silence. Then I opened a blank email draft to the restaurant, typed, please note, delivery should be removed from my name moving forward. I deleted it before I finished the sentence. This wasn't going to be solved with a clean retraction. It wasn't something to be handled quietly anymore. Later that night, I walked to the fridge. That sticky note was still there, the one I left after chapter 6. I ripped it down. In its place, I wrote with a black Sharpie, all caps, "Payment stays, but so do the consequences." The night before the party, my apartment smelled like quiet revenge. I didn't light a candle, didn't play music. I just sat in the kitchen with the window cracked open, letting in the Austin air, and dialed Nayra's number. "Don't deliver tomorrow," I said. There was a pause. Then, "Are you sure?" "Keep the food, keep the money," I replied. I didn't owe her an explanation, and she didn't ask for one. That's how real friends operate. I hung up and wrote a single line in my notebook before sliding it into the drawer. I owe them nothing. Not even the meal. The next evening, I didn't check my phone until nearly 8 p.m. A part of me had already let go, but curiosity has a cruel way of lingering. My cousin was live streaming from the house. I opened the video on mute first, just lights and laughter, wine glasses catching the gold light like secrets being passed around. Then I unmuted. "Still no food?" someone asked, half laughing. "Weren't they getting that big Italian spread?" Another voice. "Didn't Eleora handle the food?" The camera shifted toward Delphine, who smiled a little too wide and disappeared down the hallway. A few moments later, I watched her grab her phone and tap the screen frantically. She was calling the restaurant, on speaker. "This is Delphine Hartwell. We're still waiting on our delivery," she started. The manager's voice cut through the noise, clear and loud enough to silence the room. "The order was canceled. By Eleora Hartwell, this morning." The party stopped breathing. One guest covered their mouth. Another tilted their head in disbelief. I saw Jerome freeze near the patio doors, drink still in hand, eyes suddenly heavier than the wine could explain. My phone rang. I answered before the second ring. "Why would you do this?" my father shouted, his voice trembling more from embarrassment than anger. "You ruined everything!" I didn't yell back. I didn't defend. I just asked the only question that mattered. "What day is it, Dad?" A pause. A ripple in the speaker feedback. "It's Friday," he muttered. And was I ever on the list? Silence. I could hear someone in the background gasp. Maybe my aunt, maybe no one I even liked. "She paid for this?" a woman asked aloud. "And wasn't even invited?" I didn't hang up. I let the silence hold. Because sometimes the loudest thing in a room is the truth finally being heard. It only takes one missing name to change what everyone sees. Finally, they saw it. The music had softened, as if even the speakers knew too much had been said. Outside on the patio, guests clustered in quiet pairs, drinks held loosely, eyes shifting from one another to their phones. No one asked for a refill. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong at a celebration had settled in. Someone near the fire pit whispered, "Wait, she paid for all this? And they didn't even invite her?" Delphine didn't flinch. She smoothed a wrinkle in her dress, raised her glass, and replied with the gentlest shrug I'd ever heard in a voice. "She's not invited. It's not her home anymore." She smiled as she said it, like the words didn't taste bitter in her mouth. Like they were just fact, not verdict. No one argued. Jerome stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets. He didn't correct her. He didn't look at anyone. He just watched the sky as if waiting for the night to roll itself up and disappear. Nayra slipped inside. I imagined her pretending to get a call, looking for a way out. Others followed. Some left quietly. A few forgot their jackets. No one stopped to say goodbye. Back in my apartment, I sat on the balcony with my phone face down on the table. I hadn't touched it since I hung up. The silence that followed my question wasn't surprising. It was confirmation. I kept replaying her words. She's not invited. It's not her home anymore. But something about them didn't land like they were meant to. They didn't sting, they didn't cut. They just echoed and then dissolved. If it wasn't mine anymore, then it wasn't a loss. Just a vacancy. Just space cleared. The next morning, Jerome sent a message. We should talk. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to clarify. I found the extra house key in my drawer, placed it in a small envelope, and mailed it with no return address. No note. Just one less weight to carry. That weekend I drove to Ohio. The cemetery was quiet, cold but kind. I brought a folded drawing from Ronan, one he'd made for me years ago, back when he still drew me with long hair and called me Aya. I didn't cry. I just sat next to her name and let the silence fill the space they tried to take. They shut a door. I walked through a different one. Maybe some doors are meant to close. And maybe the most powerful thing we can do is not bang on them, but walk away with our names still intact. What I learned is this: silence can be a sentence, but it can also be a decision. You don't have to scream to reclaim yourself. Sometimes the most defiant thing you can do is to no longer show up where you're only valued for your silence. If you've ever felt erased from your own family, let me tell you, you are not alone. And you're not less for walking away. You're more for knowing when to. What about you? Have you ever been made to feel like a guest in your own life? I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched something in you, comment 1 below, or tell me what city you're watching from. If it didn't, that's okay too. Let me know why. Let's talk. And if you want more stories like this, stories that speak softly but stay with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We've only just begun.